Have you ever felt it? A deep, quiet hum of emptiness in a world screaming with noise and progress? If this message finds you, it is not by chance. Your soul is vibrating on a frequency that is ready to receive a deeper, more resonant truth. You are not alone in this feeling, and you are not crazy for questioning the very fabric of the reality you've been sold. In fact, this feeling is a sign of your awakening, a divine signal that you are ready to see beyond the veil. If these words touch a chord deep within you, let your energy be felt in this space. A simple "I resonate," or even the number 777 in the comments below, is a powerful affirmation to the universe and to all the other souls on this journey that we are waking up together. Your experience is a sacred part of this collective shift, so share it and let us know that you are here. At the dawn of this modern age, we were offered a silent, unspoken pact, a divine contract of sorts. We were told that through the marvels of art, the genius of science, and the pursuit of glorious achievements, we would find our ultimate liberation, our deepest peace. We were promised that modernity would be the grand culmination of human evolution, the absolute zenith of our development. You have been told, from the moment you took your first breath, that you are living in the most magnificent time in all of history. A time where technology, like a benevolent God, has vanquished the ancient hardships that once tormented our ancestors. Think about it. The plagues, the famines, the grueling physical labors that defined generations past have been largely smoothed away, replaced by a world of unprecedented convenience. We live in a world where technology has woven a web of instant connection around the entire planet. With the touch of a screen, you can communicate with someone on the other side of the globe, their face appearing as if by magic in the palm of your hand. We hold devices that grant us access to a seemingly infinite ocean of information, a reservoir of knowledge that dwarfs the legendary Library of Alexandria. The comforts we enjoy, the ease with which we live, the luxuries that we now consider basic necessities, these were utterly unthinkable, the stuff of wild fantasy, just a few short decades ago. We were promised a paradise built by human hands, a world where our hearts would finally be at ease. And yet, despite this mountain of advantages, despite all the glitter and the speed and the endless stream of conveniences, something fundamental, something essential to the human spirit, feels desperately and profoundly missing, does it not? Instead of feeling a deep sense of fulfillment, a quiet joy in our being, many of us are haunted by a persistent, unexplainable sense of emptiness. It's a quiet ache in the soul that no new gadget, no promotion, no amount of external validation can soothe. It feels as though we were promised a better world, a more beautiful existence. But somewhere along this frantic journey, that sacred promise was shattered into a million pieces. The paradise we were sold turned out to be a beautifully constructed gilded cage. From a very young age, we are conditioned to absorb the dominant narrative of our society. It's a story we are told through our education, through the media, through the very structure of our lives. This story tells us that society is on a perpetual upward trajectory, that it advances in a perfectly linear and progressive manner, always moving towards something better. We are led to believe that every new innovation, every technological leap, every bit of economic growth brings us one step closer to a fuller, more comfortable, and more meaningful life. It's a foundational belief, a sacred tenet of the modern world. This belief is so deeply ingrained in our collective consciousness that it is rarely, if ever, questioned. It is simply assumed, accepted as an undeniable truth, that technological and economic development are the twin engines of human well-being. We have been taught to equate progress with happiness, efficiency with fulfillment. The forward march of technology is presented as synonymous with the evolution of the human soul. We have built our entire world upon this premise, this unquestioned assumption that a more advanced society is inherently a happier one. But if that were truly the case, why do so many of us feel so deeply and profoundly dissatisfied? If we are living in the best of all possible worlds, why does the human heart ache with such a persistent sense of longing? The truth is, modernity has created a devastating paradox. Instead of bringing us closer to a state of authentic happiness, it has in many ways amplified the very sense of disconnection and alienation it promised to heal. It has created a world that is more connected on the surface, yet more fragmented at its core than ever before. The problem, you see, does not lie in progress itself. The advancement of knowledge and the betterment of living conditions are not inherently flawed. The true issue, the source of this deep spiritual malaise, is the way in which human existence itself has been fundamentally redefined within this new structure. Society has subtly but relentlessly transformed the sacred journey of life into an endless, frantic race. It's a race where the goal is no longer to simply live, to be, to experience, but to constantly produce and ceaselessly consume. We are taught, almost from birth, that the key to our fulfillment lies not within, but without. It lies in the constant, upward climb of growth, in the relentless accumulation of material goods, in the obsessive optimization of our time, and in the maximization of our performance. We are judged not by the quality of our spirit, but by the quantity of our output. And in this obsessive, breathless pursuit of these external ideals, we have tragically lost sight of what is truly essential. We have traded the peace of our hearts for the promise of a prize that is always just out of reach. The promise of progress also sold us the grand illusion of connectivity. We were told that technology, with its instant messaging and global networks, would bring us closer together than ever before. We were promised that it would dissolve the distances between us, that it would foster deeper and more meaningful human relationships. But what has reality shown us? Has it not proven the exact opposite? Instant communication has not, in fact, strengthened our bonds. In many cases, it has made them more superficial, more fleeting, more hollow. The sacred space of genuine face-to-face contact has been largely replaced by the sterile glow of digital interaction. And the constant, curated exposure to the highlight reels of other people's lives has turned the natural act of comparison into a destructive, soul-crushing habit. Never before in human history has humanity had access to so many forms of interaction, so many platforms to connect. And yet, has the feeling of isolation and loneliness ever been more pervasive? It's a silent, aching epidemic that spreads through the very networks that promise to unite us. Another great pillar of this broken promise is the seductive idea that knowledge, in and of itself, would set us free. And in our modern world, access to information is, for all intents and purposes, unlimited. The entirety of human knowledge is available at our fingertips. But instead of leading us to a deeper, more profound understanding of the world and our place within it, this deluge of data has plunged us into an ocean of endless distractions. We live our lives bombarded by a constant stream of stimuli that fragment our attention and shatter our ability to focus. This constant noise, this endless chatter, prevents us from ever stopping to simply reflect, to be still, to listen to the quiet wisdom of our own souls. Information has ceased to be a means to achieve wisdom. Instead, it has become just another fast consumption product, something designed more to entertain and distract than to truly enrich and enlighten. We are the most informed generation in history, yet we may also be the least wise, because we have forgotten how to be still enough to let knowledge blossom into true understanding. The very structure of the modern system has insidiously shaped our deepest aspirations and expectations. We are told, in 1,000 different ways, that success is synonymous with status and that financial stability is the absolute foundation of happiness. We are conditioned to believe that life should be meticulously planned and measured, not in moments of joy or connection, but in terms of tangible achievements and milestones. But these goals, these societal carrots dangled before us, far from providing lasting satisfaction, have instead generated a constant, gnawing sense of inadequacy. Progress has imposed a cold, mechanistic view of existence, a worldview where a person's value is measured not by the depth of their character or the kindness of their heart, but by their raw productivity and their usefulness within the great social machine. We have been subtly turned into cogs, replaceable parts in a system that values output above all else. And work, the act of producing, has been elevated to become the very essence of our existence, the sole purpose that is meant to give meaning to our days. In this model, the workday never truly ends. It extends in subtle and relentless ways, blurring the sacred boundaries between our professional and personal lives. Even when the official workday is over, the mind remains trapped in a cage of worries, anxieties, and to-do lists that never cease. The technologies that promise to make our lives easier have, in reality, tethered us to a state of constant availability. Fatigue, therefore, is not just physical, but mental and emotional. It is a feeling of ongoing wear, of being trapped in an endless cycle where each day feels just like the last, with no real room for pause or genuine soul-replenishing rest. Productivity has been glorified as the ultimate virtue, while leisure, the sacred time for rest and reflection, has been relegated to a secondary, almost frivolous role. It's seen as a mere waste of time rather than a fundamental human need. The system imposes an invisible but persistent pressure to always stay busy, to always be doing something. In this paradigm, doing nothing becomes an unforgivable sin, as if our very existence depended on our ability to produce without rest. But in this endless race, this frantic pursuit of more, exhaustion is not just possible, it is absolutely inevitable. Anxiety and stress are not anomalies in this system. They are the natural, predictable state of those who have been conditioned to measure their own worth based on their performance. Consumption, of course, emerges as the other critical pillar of this flawed equation. For the system to continue functioning, it is not enough for us to work tirelessly. It is also necessary that we spend ceaselessly. We have been expertly taught to find our satisfaction, our very sense of self, in the accumulation of goods. We have been conditioned to see consumption as a direct path to happiness. But this promised happiness, this fleeting thrill of the new purchase, never truly arrives because the entire mechanism is designed to be insatiable. As soon as one product is obtained and the initial excitement fades, the manufactured need for another immediately appears. The illusion is created that satisfaction is always just around the corner, just one more purchase away, but in reality, it is a cruel mirage that moves farther away with each step we take toward it. Persuasive strategies, crafted with psychological precision, have been perfected to the point that few people ever stop to question them. You must understand, advertising does not sell products. It sells aspirations. It sells a lifestyle. Consumption is expertly associated with success, with status, with a sense of belonging. Each new object we acquire comes with an implicit promise of an improvement in our life, a sense of fulfillment that, tragically, never materializes. The disappointment that follows each purchase is not a mistake or a bug in the system. It is an essential, built-in part of the mechanism. Perpetual dissatisfaction is the very fuel that keeps the great wheel of consumption turning. This model has also profoundly transformed our perception of time. People no longer live in the sacredness of the present moment. Instead, we are trapped in a state of constant, anxious anticipation of the future. We work, waiting for the next break. We buy, waiting for the next upgrade. We plan, waiting for an ideal moment that never seems to come. The present, the only moment that truly exists, becomes a mere means to reach a future that, when it finally materializes, turns out to be uncannily identical to the past we were trying to escape. We live in an eternal promise of something better, without ever realizing that life itself is slipping away unnoticed in the process. Human disconnection is another grave and direct consequence of this model. The system has promoted and glorified extreme individualism, but in reality, it has only served to isolate people from one another. Self-sufficiency has been so intensely glorified that emotional dependence is now often seen as a weakness. The idea that each individual must be a completely autonomous unit, able to face life without needing anyone else, has been normalized. But the reality, the deep truth of our being, is that human connection is a fundamental need, not an optional luxury. The absence of meaningful, authentic bonds leaves a void that cannot be filled with entertainment, success, or material possessions. The result of this model is a society where loneliness has become a silent, creeping epidemic. And this is not the chosen, creative solitude that allows for introspection and personal growth. This is an imposed solitude, a solitude born from a system that fragments relationships and turns people into independent, competing units, each operating within their own impersonal framework. We live surrounded by others, but often without a true, soul-deep sense of belonging. The lack of authentic connections generates a diffuse, constant discomfort, a feeling of emptiness that we then try to fill with the very distractions that caused it, a cycle that never completely relieves the underlying ache. This entire scenario, this entire way of life, has been so normalized to the point that few ever stop to truly question it. It is simply accepted as the only possible way to live, the inevitable price of what we call progress. But beneath the polished surface of this apparent normality, something doesn't fit. There is a persistent, whispering feeling that something is missing, a deep inner knowing that life should not and does not have to feel this way. However, expressing this discomfort is incredibly difficult because the dominant narrative of the world keeps repeating, like a mantra, that everything is better than ever, that the problem is not the system, but the individual's inability to adapt to it. In a world that seems designed to keep us busy, productive, and constantly distracted, the most essential question of all remains the same. What is it all for? Modern life, with all its material splendor and its dazzling technological advances, has stripped many people of a deep, resonant understanding of themselves. The disconnection, the alienation, and the emptiness felt daily are not merely unfortunate side effects of a flawed system. They are the direct result of an even deeper disconnection, a disconnection from the self. The search for purpose, although seen as a fundamental priority of human existence, has been tragically dissolved in a tangled web of external expectations, imposed goals, and societal ideals. We have been taught to find meaning outside of ourselves in wealth, in the accumulation of achievements, in social recognition. But this hollow pursuit only leads to a deeper dissatisfaction because these achievements can never seem to fill the inner void. The life presented to us as the most advanced, the most progressive, is actually built upon an empty, fragile scaffolding. This emptiness is felt most acutely when one finally pauses for a moment, when one allows themselves to think for an instant and asks, amid all this noise, is this really what was sought? Every time we immerse ourselves in the frantic rhythm of social expectations, every time we unthinkingly go with the flow, we lose an important, vital part of ourselves. We tell ourselves it's all part of the process, that success is just around the corner. But that corner never arrives. And the worst part is that we've grown accustomed to this feeling. We've learned to live with the low-grade anxiety of hoping that tomorrow will bring something better, when in reality, the future all too often just reflects the present we are so desperate to escape. Waking up to this emptiness is not an easy or immediate path. It is a painful process because it means facing the stark truth that the system does not have the answers it promised. The constant search for pleasure, comfort, and social validation only leads to a dissatisfaction that grows deeper and more entrenched over time. One might think this is a process experienced only by the most desperate or the most disillusioned, but in reality, it is a common experience for all who live at the center of the modern paradigm. The constant nagging question, "Is this all there is?" is a manifestation of a deeper, soul-level desire. The desire for authenticity, the desire to find a meaning that does not depend on what one has or what others think. This emptiness is not only related to the lack of clear, personal goals, but also to a profound lack of connection with something greater, something that transcends us. Sometimes, a simple realization can become a monumental turning point, the beginning of a new way of seeing and experiencing life. A path that doesn't measure our worth by what we own, but by who we truly are. By what we give, by what we are able to create when we finally break free from the invisible chains of a system that taught us to live for others' expectations and not for ourselves. And that is where the real crisis of modern society lies. Not in a lack of progress, but in the pervasive emptiness that so often comes with it. We have made so many advances, we have moved so fast, but in doing so, we have drifted further and further away from what is truly essential. We have ended up lost in a kind of labyrinth, a place where success, consumption, and productivity are held up as the ultimate goals. But in the end, they are nothing more than beautiful, fleeting illusions. And while we are busy chasing those illusions, we find ourselves caught in an endless, exhausting loop, always reaching for a satisfaction that somehow remains just out of reach. But the truth is, what we really need isn't more stuff. It's not about achieving more or ticking off more boxes on a list. What we truly need is to learn to live with intention, to find our way back to what makes us human, to remember how to feel, how to slow down, how to be present, to reconnect with ourselves, with others, and with something deeper that cannot be bought, earned, or measured. Because only when we stop looking for the answers out there and start listening to the whispers within, do we realize something profoundly important. The meaning of life was never hidden in the rush or in the noise, or in the race to keep up with a world that never stops moving. It has been in the stillness all along, in the quiet moments of honest thought, in the depth of real relationships, and in the connection to who we are beneath the layers, beyond the roles, and outside the expectations. If any part of this message spoke to your soul, I want to ask you for a small favor. Would you consider liking this video, leaving a comment, or subscribing to the channel? I know that little like button might seem like a small thing, but believe me, it's actually a powerful way to help this message reach others who might really need it too. And before you go, you'll probably see a couple of suggested videos pop up on your screen. I could explain what they're about, but all I'll say is they go even deeper into the ideas we've explored here. If you're feeling ready to keep walking this path of self-discovery, I truly believe it's worth giving them a look. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of this reflection. And I sincerely hope we meet again soon.